It started the morning I found a woman I barely knew setting up folding tables on my private beach, acting like she'd just rented the whole ocean for the weekend. Her name was Karen, of course. It was president of the Seaside Dunes Homeowners Association, and she looked at me over those sunglasses and said real casual, "We'll need you to unlock your beach house by noon for the reunion." Yeah, that happened. Clipboard in hand, HOA badge swinging like she was the mayor of the coastline. Behind her, minivans were spitting out kids and coolers and banners that screamed "Family First" as if the whole world revolved around her picnic. I stood there, mug of coffee going cold in my hand, thinking, no way this is real. Karen, this isn't a community center, it's my home. She smiled in that way only people in power can, tight and thin, and leaned in so close I could smell coconut sunscreen and trouble. "Then consider it your contribution to the neighborhood spirit," she said, tapping her clipboard, "because I already told everyone it's happening here." And just like that, I knew my quiet life by the sea was about to be turned upside down by a 3-act HOA war, pastel umbrellas, and regulations for weapons. My place is old. Not fancy blue shutters, creaky floors, a dock my dad built with his own hands before I was born. The ocean had sanded the wood down to silver. Every scar on the place was a memory, and I came back here after Dad passed to find the kind of peace only waves could give you. But the HOA didn't like peace, especially the kind they couldn't control. From the first day, they sent letters. Paint conformity, dock length restrictions, noise expectations. Translation: your house is a blemish on our glossy neighborhood brochure. Still, I kept to myself. Fixed what I could, tried to let the rest slide. But then came Karen, with hair so sprayed it didn't move in the wind, acting like she'd been crowned queen of the dunes. That morning I watched her from the porch, barefoot and tired, as she started directing traffic like a cruise director on a mission. Kids tore up my sand, people hammered stakes into the ground, and some guy unspooled an extension cord right up to my outlet. That's when I put my mug down and walked over, unplugged it. Karen turned, scandalized. "Excuse me, we have a permit." I raised an eyebrow. "A permit for what, Karen?" She blinked. "A community event. HOA approved." I pointed at my private property sign. "That sign's not decorative." She smirked. "You should be honored. This helps everyone's property values." It was like arguing with a seagull about taxes. She tried to claim my beach was shared community space even though I paid for every inch and had county maps to prove it. She just smiled sweetly. "Then I'll just have to double-check your paperwork. HOA code for I'm about to make your life miserable." By sunset, the tables were gone, but the seed was planted. That evening, I got an email, urgent property compliance. Notice. My porch light was too bright, my dock too long, and a noise complaint about hammering after 8 p.m., though I hadn't picked up a tool all week. It was an attack, and I knew exactly who was behind it. Over the next few days, Karen sent the full arsenal daily HOA letters, volunteer inspection teams to photograph my fence, which was apparently eroding the coast just by existing. One guy was her brother-in-law, neon vest aviators thought he was a mall cop. I asked them nicely to leave. They didn't. So I started filming, mentioned the words trespassing and county sheriff. They scattered like seagulls. But Karen wasn't finished. She started spreading rumors I was anti-community, wouldn't support neighborhood events, hurting the HOA's precious image. Apparently, refusing to let strangers throw a reunion on your private beach was now a crime against humanity. The funny part, people believed her. Cars slowed past my driveway. Neighbors whispered like I'd buried a body in the dunes. One even asked if I was under investigation. That's when I realized her real weapon wasn't rules, it was gossip. She weaponized reputation. I didn't fight back right away. My dad always said, "Don't swat at mosquitoes, find the nest." So I played nice, smiled, waved, and started preparing. The last straw was finding her measuring my dock again. "Just verifying your compliance," she said. "You always bring a tape measure to other people's property." She didn't blush, just shrugged. "We want to make sure everyone's following the same standards." That's when I understood she really believed she was untouchable. And untouchable people make the loudest noise when they fall. That night I sat on the porch, sea breeze in my face, listening to her voice drift across the dunes as she plotted her next move. She didn't know I'd already called Stan, my dad's old friend, retired county inspector, lived just a few blocks over. I told him everything, Karen, the citations, the party plans. He chuckled. "That woman's been making up rules since day one." Send me your parcel number. I'll pull the county map. Hours later, I had a scanned copy, my land clearly marked beachfront included. My first real ammunition. I pinned it next to the stack of HOA letters on my corkboard. Looked like a war room. That evening, Karen drove by again, her husband holding up his phone, pretending to check the GPS. Another urgent notice came, non-standard fence material. I don't even have a fence, just weathered posts. I saved every scrap, every email, every photo. Word traveled fast. Even the barista in town heard I was threatening to sue the HOA. Thank you, Karen. I laughed it off and left a big tip. But now I documented everything. Videos, photos, screenshots, recordings of her yelling through my closed gate. My house had survived hurricanes. It would survive this. Later that week, Stan met me at the diner, folder thick as a rulebook, boundary record, tax receipts, surveyor certification. If she claims your beach again, she's in violation of county code, he said. Let her try. You've got her by the clipboard. I walked out of there feeling like I'd finally caught the wind at my back. By the weekend, things escalated. HOA newsletter. Thanks to one generous resident, our annual gathering will be at the beach. No name, but everyone knew. My phone buzzed with neighbors asking if I'd changed my mind. I didn't reply. I walked the sand, saw fresh chalk outlines, tent markers, parking cones. It would have been infuriating if it wasn't so predictable. Karen couldn't process someone saying no. I sat on the porch under a bright moon, waves rolling in, and realized her power was all appearance control for its own sake. She fed on being seen as the one in charge. So instead of stopping her, I let her dig her own hole, but this time with the law watching. I prepared everything. Stan helped me file for a county compliance review quietly. No drama. Let her set up her circus, he said. Just be ready when the inspector shows. Karen doubled down, flyers, Facebook posts, even a drone photo of my beach. Every overstep was another nail in her own coffin. 3 days before the reunion, a landscaping crew showed up with tiki torches and chairs. I asked, "Who sent you?" Foreman waved a clipboard. Karen said you approved. I started recording. He packed up fast. That night, Karen came storming down the path. You embarrassed my volunteers, I said. They were trespassing, Karen. You can't volunteer on land you don't own. She muttered about community spirit and stomped off. I called the sheriff's office just to check. If she steps foot past your boundary, it's trespassing. If she brings guests, that's organized trespass. Got it. Save the call record, too. 2 days out, Karen hosted a community meeting. Invitations slipped under my door like a threat. The room was packed, sunscreen and coffee in the air. She smiled at the crowd, announced, "Thanks to one generous homeowner, we're celebrating on our beach." Then looked at me. "Would you like to say a few words?" I stood up. "Just one. My property isn't part of this event." The air left the room. Her smile froze, but she recovered. Afterward, a few neighbors approached. Helen, retired teacher. I thought the HOA owned that beach. I showed her the map. She blinked. So she lied. Let's just say she's confused about geography, I said. The morning of the event, the neighborhood buzzed. Karen bragged in the HOA chat about record attendance. She told her followers to use the path behind my blue house, my house. She scheduled a drone shoot for the harmony of seaside dunes. I watched the circus unfold from my porch, notebook in hand, phone camera ready. Tents, banners, music, SUVs unloading as if I didn't exist. Then I saw Stan and the county inspector arrive, followed by the sheriff's deputy. Showtime. I let them enjoy the first hour. Kids splashed in the surf. Karen gave interviews. As long as we have generous residents like Mr. Reynolds, we'll do this every year. That was gold for the record. At 1 p.m. sharp. Stan, the inspector, and the deputy walked down the sand toward Karen. She spotted them mid-speech. "Oh, always nice to see officials supporting our event." The inspector raised his clipboard. "Actually, we're here for a report of unauthorized use of private property." Silence hit the crowd like a rogue wave. Karen tried to bluff. "This is community land." Stan handed her the map. "According to county records, this beach belongs to Mr. Reynolds." You could almost hear her pride snap. The inspector showed the county stamp. "Your event is trespassing." Murmurs in the crowd. The deputy. "Did you secure written permission for this gathering?" Karen opened her mouth, closed it. Cameras flashed. Her own relatives were filming her meltdown. Stan replied, "You're the HOA." The crowd laughed. The inspector said, You'll need to dismantle this event immediately. Continued use is a violation under county code. Karen shouted. If he wants to isolate himself from the community, let him, but nobody followed her. Neighbors whispered about her lies as tents came down and the music died. Karen stormed to her SUV, slammed the clipboard, and sped off. The beach emptied. I walked to the waterline, sunsetting gold on deflated balloons and one lonely folding chair. Stan joined me. You handled that well. Didn't even raise your voice. I grinned. Didn't need to. The ocean did it for me. He said there'd be an emergency HOA meeting by morning, either vote her out or implode entirely. It wasn't just about the beach anymore. It was about where you draw the line. The next morning, Karen's meltdown was semi-viral in our little town. Everyone had seen her denial the official map, the deputies trespassing. I didn't set out to humiliate her. I just wanted peace. But humiliation was a byproduct of her own arrogance. Still, I expected she'd try something else. People like her always do. I had backups of every file, signed county statements, the works. Stan showed up with coffee, grinning. They suspended her pending investigation, froze spending no legal fund for her defense. Poetic justice. But I knew Karen's pride would die hard. 2 days later, a truck tried to deliver flood markers on her order, another trespass. I told the workers they could leave or wait for the sheriff. They left. An email arrived supposedly from the HOA, but it was just Karen in disguise. In the spirit of reconciliation, we request permission to revisit your beachfront for future events. I didn't reply. Some lessons need silence to echo. Greg Walters, the new acting president, emailed nervous. Please confirm the HOA isn't included in any legal action. I replied, no action unless further trespass occurs. That made them all cautious. A week later, the county posted the violation hearing online. Karen's defeat was public record. That night, I saw boxes on her porch, her husband's car gone. I felt a flicker of pity, then remembered months of harassment. She'd earned this board by board, letter by letter. At the next HOA meeting, nobody wanted to be president. Helen, the retired teacher, stood up. Maybe we don't need a president. Maybe we just need neighbors. They voted to dissolve the board, leave management to volunteers. For the first time in ages, the neighborhood felt human. We had a barbecue on my beach. No speeches, no rules, just food and laughter. Stan grilled fish. Helen brought lemonade. Someone joked Karen would call the cops on the sunset. We laughed until the stars came out and the tide washed away every trace of her failed reunion. I thought of my dad, how ownership is about respect, not fences. When I finally went inside, the ocean sounded like a lullaby. For the first time in months, I slept easy. Weeks passed, the neighborhood healed. Without the HOA's shadow, people rediscovered each other. Paint grew bolder, gardens, wild fences, imperfect but alive. Even the old man down the street hung Christmas lights in July just because he could. New neighbors moved into Karen's house laughing about the legendary HOA president. I told them long gone but not forgotten. They laughed and it felt like the best kind of closure. Then one afternoon, a letter from a law firm arrived. Karen was suing me for defamation and emotional distress. I almost laughed. Stan called in a favor and we replied firm legal, prepared to counterclaim for harassment. Her lawyer dropped the case before it reached hearing. That night, walking the beach alone, I realized people like her always lose. Not because someone beats them, but because they can't stop fighting even after the war is done. The sea just keeps rolling in, erasing everything false. The next summer, Seaside Dunes held a cookout, no permits, no drama, just neighbors and old songs on the breeze. Stan clinked his beer against mine. You could have left, but you stayed. I smiled. So did you. Helen toasted me in front of the fire. He stood his ground until the storm passed. That's what real community looks like. I looked around, firelight on every face, and thought this is what it's supposed to be. Messy, imperfect, alive. Maybe that's what the whole storm was for, forcing us to remember what matters, what doesn't. And when I finally turned off the porch light that night, listening to the waves in the dark, I knew the tide had finally turned. So let me ask you, where do you draw your line? Is peace just the absence of noise, or is it something you earn, one stand, one storm at a time? If you've ever had to stand your ground or dealt with an HOA nightmare, I want to hear it. Drop your story down below. Let's remind each other that sometimes the tide is on our side.